Amazing. So for our first panel, we're going to explore the intersection of grassroots land use and the Joe Louis Greenway. So moderating this panel, I'm happy to introduce Rachel Smith of Smithgroup.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rachel Smith with Smithgroup. So happy to be with you all this afternoon. We have 4 wonderful speakers that are geared up to share with you their knowledge and expertise around vacant land use. And our first speaker is going to be Wes Michaels from SMM. He's a landscape architect with over 15 years of experience in landscape architecture and vacant land management. Paul Draus, Sarah Hayosh, and Tammy Black will all be speaking. So please give it up for Wes. Oh, I'm sorry, I have a few things to go over. So the first thing, I'm just going to give a little overview of the JLG and what we're talking about when we talk about the JLG Neighborhood Framework Plan. So the JLG Neighborhood Framework Plan is broken up into 8 neighborhood groups. And while we're not going to focus on all 8, the 3 that you see kind of down at the bottom that are along the riverfront, they've already gone through some neighborhood-based planning, so we're going to incorporate that. The other 5 neighborhoods that you see in the darker yellow also have boards along the back wall. So I'm going to have you all look to the back wall. So each one of those boards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, along this back wall and along the side wall between the bathroom and that entrance to the other room, those are each of the neighborhood areas that we're going to be focusing on. We're looking about a half mile outside of the JLG on either side. So when we're talking about this particular neighborhood plan, we're not looking at the JLG itself. That has already gone through a planning process. What we're really looking at are all of the things that are around the JLG. We want to look at the businesses, what needs to grow, how can we sustain businesses, how can we bring more jobs into that area around the JLG. We're looking at houses, we're looking at homes, how can we keep people in their homes. We know that the JLG is bringing a great amount of economic development to your neighborhoods. So how can we make sure that you can stay in your neighborhoods when this new growth comes in? Building wealth, helping people to build wealth. Organizational capacity. As you see out in the back, there's a lot of organizations that work in this space. How can we work with those organizations? How can we build the capacity of those organizations to help your neighborhoods thrive? And then connectivity and mobility, as well as neighborhood improvements. That's what we're really focusing on today. And in this neighborhood-based study, we want to look at each neighborhood within those 6 categories and talk about what's unique in this neighborhood, how can we improve housing in this neighborhood, and how is that different in the west side versus the DeQuindercut extension. There's a lot of differences, obviously, between each neighborhood. So the overall time frame, I'm going to, try and move out of the way here. We are in phase 2 of, maybe if I stand back here, I'll be out of everybody's way. Okay, so we are in phase 2 of this process. We're in the process of doing topic-based discussions with each of your neighborhoods. We've done a first round of community engagement, and now we're kind of transitioning into developing draft recommendations and draft action plan. So what does the plan comprise of? We're looking at, for the whole plan, we want to incorporate community input along with the data that we collect, not only from you, but from the city and from all the organizations. We want to make sure that this is both community-driven, but also data-based. And then incorporating all of that feedback, all of that information into those 6 goals that I talked about. Okay, now at this point, I'm going to turn it over to one of our panelists, Wes Michaels with SMM, who will kick off our opening session.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, Rachel, thank you so much. And so we're at a unique opportunity at the Joe Louis Greenway planning stage, and these are some of the other greenways that have, been developed around the country. And a lot of times it has been build it and they will come, and the greenway gets built and the planning sort of comes afterwards. So what we have a unique opportunity to do now is really think about the planning before the greenway is being built as it's going forward, and think about not only the greenway itself, but all the impacts it can have in the neighborhoods around it. And what I want to do is really just sort of set the stage. This is a little bit of a big picture sort of look at vacant lands, and what can we do with vacant lands. Some of the nuances are really going to be three questions. What can we do with vacant lands? Because there's lots of different types of vacant land out there. So an industrial parcel is different than a residential parcel. If it's next to your house, it's different than if it's right next to the greenway. So some big picture questions about what can we do. The second piece is who should lead those efforts. So if we're going to develop, projects on the vacant land, it could be the city, it could be the community, it could be in between, it could be partnerships. But I'm going to try to sort of define some of those issues. And finally, we're going to look at whether or not these projects, again, in the idea of planning, these projects that happen on these vacant lands should be long-term projects, should they be short-term projects, and what does that mean and how to sort of think about this. So in a way, this is trying to give us a framework for thinking about the rest of the day as we're thinking about vacant lands, and as we break into more and more nuance and detail and specific sort of sites and things like that. So maybe we can, these questions start to help define that. So one of the issues is within a half mile of the greenway itself, there's as much vacant land as 2 Belle Isles, which is a lot of vacant land. So there's a lot of land out there. So in a lot of ways, what we're going to have to think about is how we prioritize the work on the vacant lands, because it's an enormous amount of space. Even just within the first block of the greenway is as much vacant land as half of Belle Isle. So that's 313 industrial acres, 148 residential acres, 28 commercial acres, and some others. So again, a lot of land out there, and we can see this in a couple of different ways. This is both, something to sort of think about how do we live with this in our neighborhood, but it's also, as we all know, a great opportunity. So I've sort of got 5 broad categories to think about what can we do with vacant land. The first one is we can think about could we repair it? So some of the industrial land and things like this are, impacting our neighborhoods in a way that is not positive. And so some of the first basic things is the idea of thinking about, could we take some of this land and repair it? Can we bring it back into sort of a green space? Can we get rid of some of the pollution? Can we make it not be an attractive nuisance in a way so that our children don't want to go out and play in this and potentially get hurt? The second idea is that we can clean it. So some of these lots are just sort of overgrown. They don't necessarily have industrial use on them from before. They're just places that are a little bit overgrown. Maybe they have a little bit of dumping, but in a way, these are lots that we can take and we can clean them. Now, as we sort of move on, we can think about, we could also sort of have these vacant lands do work for us in our neighborhood. They can make our neighborhoods more biodiverse. They could have environmental services. So we could plant trees that create habitat that help with stormwater and flooding. We could potentially add solar panels onto the vacant lots. So I mean, this is something that would be a piece of sort of ecological infrastructure that could go onto the vacant lots. Or obviously, green stormwater infrastructure is something that we could think about. I even heard ideas around recycling and other things like that could happen that could really benefit the community. So this is, in a way, can these vacant lots sort of do good environmental work for us in the neighborhoods? We can think about beautifying the neighborhoods. So these vacant lots are opportunities to really just celebrate the community and make these lots more beautiful and make our community something that really expresses the culture of the neighborhood. And finally, this is sort of the one where there's a whole session today is about this last one, which is activate the lots. And so this is where we think about the community coming in and activating the lots and using them to really, to work, to play, to really, activate them with their energy and enthusiasm and their love of their community. So a couple different ways to think about this is on the left there, it says it's a little bit of a spectrum when we think about this. Some of them, we're thinking about the idea of some of these vacant lots are impacting our communities in a negative way. And so some of this work is about reducing harm to our communities with the vacant lots. Again, things like industrial sites that potentially have polluted areas on them or attractive nuisances. On the other end of the spectrum are uses that can add value to our neighborhood. And now none of these are specific, they overlap, and it's a bit of a spectrum, but it's one good way, sort of a mental way to sort of think about these lots, like which ones maybe are impacting our neighborhoods in a negative way, and where are there opportunities to add value to our neighborhoods. And those sort of are two sides of a coin here. The second question I talked about is, who is best suited to lead these projects? So again, if we think about an industrial lot that potentially has contamination, that's not a project for all of us to sort of go out there with our shovels and try to clean up that vacant lot. It could be dangerous. There could be things out there that could harm us. That might be a project that's better suited for the city or the city partners. And the same thing with cleaning, and again, this is a spectrum as it sort of goes forward. Some of this could be better done by the city or their partners, but then when you get over here to beautify and activate, a lot of this really needs to be led by the community. And it doesn't mean that there aren't partnerships between the city and the community in all of these. Obviously, on this end, if you're thinking about repairing a property, that wants community involvement. We want to know what you want to see on the lot once it's repaired. What does it want to look like? And on the other side, where the community is leading the activation of these projects, the city wants to know, how can the city help? How can the city partner in this process and be of use in that process? And finally, this is the last one, is thinking about whether or not these projects are short-term or long-term. And again, when we're thinking about that opportunity we have right now to plan before the Greenway's built, is the idea that if there's going to be an affordable housing project on the site in, say, 5 years or 10 years, and there's that opportunity there, we don't want to put a long-term project on that site, especially something where, for example, in the Activate would be a long-term project, because if your community group goes out there and puts their blood, sweat, and tears into this lot and develops, a lot for them, for the community, that's more of a long-term project often. And it doesn't mean that it couldn't be short-term. It could be a pop-up. These are just general ideas to sort of think about. But we don't want to sort of plan ourselves into something where we've built something on a lot that eventually we want to turn into a commercial property. We want to turn it into affordable housing. It wants to be something down the road. And in one of the sessions today, we'll sort of discuss long-term and short-term activations and what those look like and what they might mean. But again, this idea of just really trying to get a framework to start to think about the different aspects around vacant lands, hopefully will, sort of permeate and something you can come back to as we sort of get through into the details for the rest of the day. That's sort of what I was wanting to get across and sort of start to think about. And again, obviously this is not the only way to sort of categorize and think about vacant lands, but it's certainly, hopefully something that can sort of stimulate some conversation today. So I think I want to turn it over to Paul next. Is this your slide here, Paul? All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a clicker? Oh, great. So I'm a professor of sociology at the University of Michigan, Dearborn. So I always tell people, when you give a professor a microphone, you tell them, stick to 5 minutes. You better watch out. But I'm going to try and do that. Tommy, you're going to let me know. Okay. So you're going to see a lot of beautiful maps and graphics here today. This is my own beautiful map of the city of Detroit. I don't know if it makes any sense to you, but sort of my way of trying to convey an understanding of what's happening in the city of Detroit from my perspective and some of the key challenges that we face, right? So what you see down here is, General Motors, the Detroit River. You see all those money signs. I called that Gilbertville and Woodward. And all this development happening along the riverfront. And then I put in big orange letters, this is my great graphic design abilities, where it says everything else in the city outside of what's going on in the riverfront and the downtown core is kind of what we're talking about here today. So you see I drew in that green line. That's the Joe Louis Greenway. That's my approximation of the Joe Louis Greenway. And I have a couple other projects I've been involved with, minor marginal projects I've been involved with, which are also the most extremely important projects from my perspective, are indicated on this map. But I think I did this to kind of just try and express, both for myself and for others, the sense that, what the Joe Louis Greenway presents is an opportunity. And I'm looking at Todd Scott over there, and I remember when this was just a conversation about a greenway that's going to connect all these different parts of the city, but these are parts of the city that haven't gotten a lot of attention or investment, that have been left behind, that have been wounded, and where space has been wasted and left to rot, right? And so I started writing how does this work? Like this? Okay. I started writing a paper a number of years ago, which I called, eventually did get published, called Wastelands, Greenways, and Gentrification. I know when I shared the draft with some people from the Joe Louis Greenway, I know Christine, I don't know if Christine is here, she winced at the title of Wastelands because of the sort of the negative connotation of it. But that was very deliberate in the sense that, first of all, wastelands is a term that you see used around the world in reference to spaces, especially in cities, that have been unused or underutilized or don't have a sort of a current clear use to them, sometimes referred to as wastelands. But also in the sense of Detroit, that the waste of these lands was not a coincidence. It was not coincidence or magic or a mystery. I mean, these were places that were cast aside and left to waste. In fact, if you look up the definition, which I did, I always like to go back to the definitions of words. Waste, go to waste, to not be used. Unwanted matter or material of any type, especially what is left after useful substances or parts have been removed, right? So if you think about the history in the city of Detroit, and this is another map, this is a more professional map done by my colleague at the University of Michigan Dearborn, Jacob Naporowski, showing, some of the sites along in the neighborhoods, sites of what is becoming and will become part of the Joe Louis Greenway. And you can see some of these sites, which are sites, on the one hand, of desolation, some people say blight or waste, but also sites of great beauty and great diversity, right? That contain within them the histories and the stories of these communities, right? So to me, one of the great kind of potential opportunities, but also the challenges of the Joe Louis Greenway project was, how could this development, how could this intervention help to address some of these issues that exist in a lot of these different neighborhoods, which are shared and which have to do with the city's history, right? So these are just a couple of other quick maps, right? So we started thinking about this track of the Joe Louis Greenway, and we started doing a series of maps, which I kind of refer to as Detroit donut maps, right? Which were showing, this one is social vulnerability in the city of Detroit. You see there on the left, that's a larger map of the region of Metro Detroit, and you see the red areas are the areas of social vulnerability, heightened social vulnerability, which is a socioeconomic term, which has to do with sort of combined exposure or risk for everything from like economic crisis to disease, right? Social vulnerability. And you see how Joe Louis Greenway tracks through many of the areas in the city of Detroit, which are the most vulnerable in terms of the entire region of Southeast Michigan. And this was a map that was done by Alex Hill. I don't know if you know Alex. I don't think Alex is here today. Does the Detroitography website. He's a very creative mapper. He also did the book called Detroit in 50 Maps. He did this map early on in the COVID-19 pandemic, which showed the distribution of risk for COVID-19 in the city of Detroit and where it was most concentrated using this sort of heat map. And so the darker areas are the areas that had the highest rate of disease and death from COVID-19. If you remember, in that very early wave, it hit Detroit very, very hard. I'm sure many of you remember, and many of us in this room lost people in that time, right? The Joe Louis Greenway here is indicated. It tracks through some of these very same neighborhoods that were most at risk for COVID-19 and remain most at risk for many crises that the city faces. When I say it's not an accident, it's not a mystery, it's not magic that these neighborhoods are at risk or that they contain these spaces which have been referred to as waste spaces or spaces of wounding as I see them. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this map, which is the map associated with the term redlining. And you see the districts in yellow and red are the ones which are classified as being at risk or declining, or the word for the term used for the areas categorized as red was hazardous, which are also areas which were defined in terms of their demographics. Areas that had people of color in them were more likely to be or most likely to be categorized as hazardous. They also had often the highest concentration of industrial sites, industrial work sites. So many people have been looking at the history of this redlining map and how much it shapes the environment that we inherit today, right? How much this is a part of the history of waste and wounding in the city of Detroit. And I love, Ms. Petty, how you put this in your poem. What will be discarded can be recovered, right? Because I think that's the story of the Joe Louis Greenway. How can you think about these different land uses? These are two other Detroit donuts. One is from the Detroit Future City Framework. Some of you remember that from 2013. And the Detroit master plan, right? And so you can see how the Joe Louis Greenway is also tracking through a variety of different types of landscapes, which have had many different ideas about what they can be used for. So the question that we had, and we started thinking about the Joe Louis Greenway and its potential, right? But also its potential risk, is this one which has to do with these two potential trajectories. One which we call the kind of green gentrification trajectory, where investments in spaces like this, as that was indicated earlier, lead to increased investment, which can then be followed by displacement and by changes in the culture and socioeconomics of the neighborhood, or another trajectory, which we called the green reparations trajectory, in which a deliberate effort is made to turn these areas of waste and wounding into areas of wealth and opportunity for the same people that were harmed and damaged by that history, right? And so the question of which is it in terms of the Joe Louis Greenway is one which is yet to be determined, but another example here in Detroit, which is currently under development, is the 275 project or 375 project in the former Black Bottom area. And I just want to leave you with a quote from Jamon Jordan, official historian of the city of Detroit, when asked if this project, in which the highway that was built over the Paradise Valley community and economic district, which was bulldozed to create the space for this highway, is now being recovered, covered back over again, whether or not this is a form of repair for what was done back then. And he said, in my mind, it is not. And if it were, it would mean descendants and former owners should get first dibs on new property. Small African-American business owners and developers should be next. So I leave with that, because I think, to me, that is the great opportunity of this project. It's also the great challenge. And I think meetings like this are fundamental to making sure that it works out the right way this time. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Hayosh. I'm with Detroit Future City. Detroit Future City is thinking about vacant land, not just along the Joe Louis Greenway, but at a citywide scale. And by our last count, Detroit had 19 square miles of vacant land. You can see on the map in pink, much of that vacant land is owned by the public, the city, the land bank, some of it Detroit Public Schools. And then in orange, there's also a smaller amount, but a good amount in public hands, and that tends to be clustered in certain areas of the city. And in the Detroit Strategic Framework, which was released in 2012, there were a number of ideas that were laid out in that framework, really inspiration for how we could reuse our vacant land more productively to improve the quality of life and increase the sustainability of our neighborhoods and of the city writ large. And so since Detroit Future City became a nonprofit organization, we've really had a major focus on developing tools and resources and providing support to community leaders who want to advance vacant land transformation in their own neighborhoods, because we believe that it's a key strategy to developing thriving, resilient neighborhoods, places where people want to live. So some of you are probably familiar with the Detroit Future City Field Guide to Working with Lots that was released in 2015. It was a toolkit which had 35 different landscape designs, step-by-step instructions for community groups to develop, whether those were pocket parks or rain gardens or native planting meadows. Really provided a lot of information for how to get that done. And then Detroit Future City also provided mini grants. So groups would apply. Our first couple of years, they were pretty small, about $3,000 or $4,000 to the groups. And then we started to scale up because, you know, these projects aren't always cheap. They take effort, they take a lot of work, they take a lot of volunteer energy. And so over the course of the 5 years, the mini grants started to scale up to closer to $15,000. And so since 2015, we supported over 50 different organizations in implementing those Field Guide to Working with Lots projects in their neighborhoods, some of them in this neighborhood. And so we have a lot of lessons to learn from. There are a ton of leaders within the city who have real experience, who have done this in their neighborhood. And then in addition to that, we also ran the Land and Waterworks Coalition, which had about a dozen organizations that were working together to build up land and water stewardship. And it was focused on education, research, outreach, shared learning, and implementation, especially around green stormwater infrastructure. And I see a number of ambassadors here in this room. So we had 77 different ambassadors that were helping to spread that word in their neighborhood. And then you can see the report in blue on the lower left. So that was our open space report. So in 2016, DFC and 30 different stakeholders worked together to create a vision for how Detroit could plan to build a more robust and integrated open space network in our city. And our open space working group still meets bi-monthly, is open to the public. If you're a interested community group, if you've done vacant land work, if you want to do it in your neighborhood, feel free to join us. You can give me your contact info, or I can give you my card. And then just a little bit about, you know, some of those 50 plus projects that DFC has helped support in neighborhoods. So they definitely vary in scale, in purpose, in use, and focus. Field Temple on the upper left. So that was a group that took a forested lot in their neighborhood. It had a lot of overgrown trees, a lot of dead trees. It was a site of dumping. They removed hundreds of yards of trash from those lots. And they wanted to transform it into a place of peace. It was really spearheaded by a group that practices Buddhist meditation together. And so actually this is their temple. It's in a field. They meet there every Sunday. You can join them in meditation. Detroit Hives, so this is the pollinator garden on Outer Drive in Brightmoor. So this is a site where they do their beekeeping activities. The native flowering plants help support the bees, and they produce honey, and they do education all across the city. Detroit Puppet Company, close to the border of Hamtramck, they installed the Mounds of Fun lot design, which serves as outdoor seating for their outdoor theater productions. And then on the lower right, you have Northwest Goldberg Cares They installed the Holland Maze design, which looks incredible in April and May when they're blooming. There's a lot of tulips and such, but they use a site as a space where they hold literacy programming. And so in the summertime, they have weekly literacy programs for kids to come and read stories and get into books. And then I'll skip over to Arboretum Detroit. So we help them start their tree nursery in Poletown East, and they have transplanted hundreds of small trees, let them grow bigger, and then they have a neighborhood program where you can volunteer to support the tree nursery and then take a tree home or more and plant it in your neighborhood or in your yard, and they support groups and residents all over the east side. So over the past couple of years, DFC, we've really been thinking, how do we scale this up? And how can we be taking more of a neighborhood-based approach to vacant land reuse? And so Poletown East is a neighborhood where we've been working closely with residents and stakeholders over the past several years. This is just 2 blocks east of the DeQuindercut Extension planning area, so just outside of the boundaries, but I think there's a lot of great work happening. And so for decades, residents had been stewarding vacant land, building community gardens. There was already a lot of interest in that, and the community came to Detroit Future City actually during the Eastern Market planning framework process, and they asked for our support to help them scale up their green space. And so we started with giving 2 Working with Lots grants in the neighborhood. And then we got funding together to do a green space planning process to really just start to increase dialogue and bring more residents into the conversation about what green space should look like, what's working, what's not, what needs to be improved, where do they want to see more types of green space. And then also, we've been working on a project to really connect those green spaces and add more walkability, add more trails to the neighborhood. And I should mention, so on the top right is Circle Forest. That is a partnership between Arboretum Detroit and DFC, 1.3 acre green space site. And then on the bottom, also in this neighborhood, is Callahan Park, which is a city park, and Detroit Audubon is helping with the creation of a bird meadow there. Okay, so I don't have much time, but I just wanted to say that Detroit, we're already experiencing climate change, right? Many of you, like me, probably had your basement flooded in 2021, and maybe even since then, right? So we're going to see more severe storms. We're going to see more flooding. We've been experiencing extreme air quality issues, especially this summer, but also for some Detroiters in certain neighborhoods surrounded by industrial land, it's a daily issue, right? We have aging energy infrastructure. We have heat islands in the city, and we need to be thinking about how we can leverage our vacant land to address these climate issues, because we all know that climate change issues impact the most vulnerable people the worst, right? It's harder to bounce back if you don't have savings to, fix your furnace or whatever happens in a flood. And so Detroit Future City has been working on a set of tools. We're thinking of it like our Working with Lots Field Guide to Working with Lots 2.0. Really looking at the different types of vacant land reuse, what you can do, at what scale is it most appropriate, what is the time frame for this, how can we go beyond solar, how can we start to build microgrids to make sure that the neighbors that are adjacent to that solar array actually are safe in the case of power outage, right? How can we start to think, you don't have to make a choice between open space or housing. We have plenty of land here in the city, we can do all of it. We can do both. So thinking about different ways that it could integrate depending on the conditions of the neighborhood. So lastly, I just want to bring it back and pull out this stat from the Trust for Public Land. So 6% of Detroit's land area is parkland, and the national average for the 100 most populated cities in the country is 12% of their city's land area is dedicated to parks. So if we want to be on par, if we want to be average, we should be doubling the amount of land that we have dedicated for parks. So let's use this vacant land to address these climate change issues, and it's going to take everybody. It's going to take community groups, it's going to take the city, it's going to take a lot of resources. These projects aren't free. We need to be leveraging as much money as we are for the Joe Louis Greenway for these neighborhood-based green space projects.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tammy Black, and I am the founder and CEO of Manistique Community Treehouse Center. And we're on the east side on Manistique. We took some blighted property on vacant lots, and we're turning it into the treehouse. It's not built yet. When COVID hit, we had to kind of be pushed back in our funding, but here's the concept. We have various programs that will run on all of our programs, but I want to focus on two: mental health and solar energy. So the Treehouse Center is a space for people with disabilities to be included. This space is 2 lots right across from my house, 225 Manistique. This space will be ran off of solar power. We started this in 2015. It'll also be a place for mental health. What we say is once you cross that sidewalk, everybody's equal, everybody's important. Mental health is important. Finance is important. That's what makes people important to a well-being of living. So that's what the Manistique Community Treehouse Center is all about. And that's where we're looking for people to come from different communities. And if we can do it with the Greenway to bring a treehouse on this side of town, we would love to, for mental health and for people who want to get better financing, mentoring, solar energy. That's one of our things that we've done. We've put solar power, this clicker thing, you guys, how do I work it? Come on, Tommy. Okay. So here's the Treehouse Center. If you guys can just, okay. Okay, now some of our services, as you know, I just mentioned, will be mental health. Because when you're not healthy mentally and you got a stigma about talking to people and getting the help that you need to be free yourself, you just can't function from day to day, right? So the Manistique Community Treehouse Center will be also a space where people can come to creative empowerment counseling services and get mental health treatment and break that stigma of if I talk to somebody, I'm crazy. No, you're not crazy. It's confidential. You can talk to them about how you're feeling, that little voice in your head, or if you're just depressed. All of these things helps us to make it day to day as individuals, as human beings, right? So that was like one of our main goes to helping the community is mental health. Okay, you guys, gotta bear with me. Did I turn it off? Okay, I got it. Okay, now, solar energy. Manistique Community Treehouse Center with Communities Power, which is our solar company, actually put solar on 25 homes in the Jefferson Chalmers community. Those homeowners only paid $2,000 to get this solar energy in. They own the system, and man, are they happy about their bills. Now tell me that's not good mental health. So not only are we dealing with the carbon that we're dealing with for getting rid of this whatever that's happening in our society or in our communities for climate change, but we're also saving our community money in their bills, right? So when you're worried about your bill, you don't care about what the sky looks like. You don't care about the smog. You're doing day to day trying to pay them bills, right? But if you can free yourself from some of those bills, then maybe we can go through solar awareness. We can go through environmental change. We can go through environmental justice. And you'll respect it a little better, right? Because you're saving a little money. You can talk about that then. Okay? So that's what we're talking about there too. Okay? So here's one of our solar tours that we had in 2018. We were the first national solar tour where we went around and everybody looked at all the homes that we solared in the community. Oh, also, we have on our lots, Ash Arter is here, where she and Charles H. Wright put in our, what they call Shine a Light, but we call it our outdoor solar movie theater ran by solar power. And if the power goes out in our community, with this being completely off the grid, thanks to Ash Arter over there, our community and anybody around can come and plug up laptops, phones, and things of that nature when the power goes out. So we have events there, and that's showing you what we did. This is another lot that's on Manistique. Okay, and here's the climate clinic that our partner, Other Works, made for the TED Talk Summit that happened, where my company, Communities Power, actually installed the solar on this climate clinic, which is completely off the grid, where you can plug up if you're having events. So we want to travel this around. Love and Botanical, who the climate clinic was donated to, and Community Treehouse Center, to different events if you want us to come and talk about solar, food justice, and things of that nature. You're welcome to book it. Starting in April, we'll have everything available for that. Also, this is our community kitchen, where we're gonna have food delivered to the seniors. It's gonna be ran off of solar power. This is the community kitchen for Manistique. And we have a housing development that's coming. Eco-friendly, solar. Some of the houses are gonna run completely without the furnaces. It's gonna be awesome, you guys. So you guys are gonna have to check us out. It's called the East Lawn Project. It's a housing development. Right now, we're working on a solar training house, which is called 2941 East Lawn, where the community and people with disabilities can come and learn how to install solar power, get a good job, and also work with some of our partners. I think that's it for me, you guys. Thank you.
Awesome. Can we give one more round of hands for all of our speakers? Okay. If you thought you were just going to come here and listen, that is not the kind of summit that this is. We want to hear from you. So Tommy and I are going to split up the room, and we want to know what questions you have in general about the plan, or for our speakers here about the content that they just went through. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I have a question for Miss Sarah. She talked about how the vacant land can affect climate change, and I'm doing the best I can to take good notes, listen, incorporate everything. But there was 4 things that she talked about as far as the climate change, and that included flooding, the clean air. I missed the other 2, and I want to know if she can talk about all 4 again, and what the importance of those are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, thank you for the question. Yeah, so the the four main issues that I brought up were flooding, and climate change is impacting that because we're getting more severe storms that our aging sewer system can't handle all this rain all at once. And so, it backs up into basements, it floods the street. So green stormwater infrastructure is a land use that can help alleviate some of that stress on our water system. It won't solve it completely. We certainly need gray infrastructure investment as well. And then also mention poor air quality, right? So when you have industrial areas that are polluting the air, when you have increased temperature, actually the ozone can impact your respiratory health even worse. And then I mentioned heat island impact, right? So there's a good percentage of Detroiters that don't have access to air conditioning in their homes. And so when we have heat waves, they are extremely vulnerable. When we have heat waves, more people are using their air conditioning, which puts a load on the energy grid, and that can, as we've experienced, sometimes cause blackouts, right? And so when you have a combination of heat wave plus blackouts, that's just a recipe for disaster, especially for people who have health issues and depend on medication and being plugged up. So the land uses that I was talking about, a number of them, like planting trees, can help alleviate urban heat island impact. Prairies, reducing the amount of hard concrete, different types of impervious surface, those can help address some of those climate change issues.
Comment, rather. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome you to our neighborhood. My name is Jennifer Williams. I do a lot of community engaging. I speak with a lot of people to bring resources here to our neighborhood. Just want to say that 2 years ago, nobody was here. And this is what we've done. So all of you came out, and I am so happy to see that my neighborhood is coming up. I'm also a resident who has rental properties here in this neighborhood. I'm also a mother of a murdered child here. So my passion is deep. I was born and raised in Detroit, only had 2 homes in my life. I've bought 5 parcels, and I've tried to put my community in affordable housing. I'm having all kind of problems. So to piggyback, I don't know what to say is important, but with the flood rains, as we speak, I have raw sewage in my basement. And it's backing up in my basement because over 20 years ago, they took the alleys and they gave them to the residents. They have not been cleaned out. The sewers are backed up. I'm at the center of the hub where the sanitation department is. So for 3 years, I've had raw sewage in my basement that we had to leave from the fumes. So I'm saying this to say that I've worked with Mr. Brown, I work with the mayor, and I've been trying to settle that sewage in my house and in my rentals, and they wanted to say, no, that this is not my responsibility. Deputy Chief Bettison was the deputy chief. He is now the assistant mayor, and guess what he did? Because he's my friend, he got my alley cleaned out, and we're in the process of having those sewers cleaned out. So that is the reason why we're having all of this flooding. And if you're not aware, what happened was when they put the suburbs in the 60s, in the 70s, they built the suburb sewer systems. They did not have their own sewer systems. They tapped into ours. And that was why we had 18-wheelers on our freeway, because we still have not had that structure. If you guys will notice that you don't hear about Holmes and Macomb and what was happening in our suburbs anymore, because why? It's over to my house. It's on the freeway. So we need to get as city government and make them responsible, because we're the residents, we suffer, and nobody cares because they're not here and they don't understand that. So I'm gonna go on and on and on. I just want you guys to know this here breaks my heart to know that God has brought this many people to our community, and I believe we on our way up. Detroit's the finest. Ride, Detroit.
Yeah, my name is Paula Cruz-Takash. I'm a resident on the east side and a member of the Field Street Block Club Association. We are dealing with several community lots or bundled lots that we're trying to work with the land bank and with the city to be able to acquire. One of my questions, and this is Belinda Gilmore, who runs our community refrigerator every single day, and also is a homeowner. I'm a renter and a homeowner, and I'm a member of the Field Street Block Club Association as well. My question is this: when I'm reading all this in the Detroit Future Cities, one of the fundamental issues is about ownership, okay? So when you're dealing with community, community programs, there's all these great projects, but bottom line, who owns that property, okay? And so this is one of the issues that we're gonna be looking at because there's all these great ideas and they're all, and a lot of possibilities, but actually realized, right, Tammy? But the bottom line is this: who owns the property? And then how do you keep these programs, for the community? We talk about community projects, but who owns it, okay? And who will own it all the way for your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren? So it's something that I don't see being addressed very often, and something that we really need to know.
I just wanted to say that ownership is a huge issue in the city. The land bank is outside. So if you have any interest in vacant land, the land bank is outside. Definitely stop by their table. We also, as a part of our closing panel, are going to be talking about collective ownership models and alternative ownership models. So look at your schedule and check that out. All right, and then, sir?
I just wanted to say Tommy's right, but also if you're a community partner, your organization, your nonprofit, you guys can purchase those parcels. Go check it out with the land bank, see what they say, you have to turn in a design to them, and they've worked with us numerous of times to make this happen. They're cooperative. So go to them, give them your design, tell them what you guys want to do and how you want to do it, and they will definitely work with you to make it happen.
Right here.
And I'll just add that, I think in our first year of the Working with Lots program, we were a bit more flexible in terms of the groups didn't necessarily have to own the land before we gave them grant money, but then we became more strict because I think if you have control of the land, obviously you can plan the future, right? So you're more likely to invest in it. If you are pouring your sweat and your time and your money out of your own pocket into these projects, you or your community group should really own the land. And I think there have been steps to try to make it easier in the past 5 or 10 years for groups to buy land for these green space projects. It's still not easy. And depending on the neighborhood, the process can vary. But I think also something that Detroit Future City is going to be exploring in the next year is different ways for land conservation and open space land trusts. So groups that want to do green space projects and program it may not have to acquire it. Like there could be a group that does sort of like the umbrella administrative work to hold land for open space. So we're going to be exploring that this year as well.
Hi, my name is Belinda, and I live right down there on Brighton between McKenzie and Joy Road. We have the fastest growing neighborhood, especially with all the immigrants and us and it's so many children down there. We don't have anything for the 13 to 21 year, with the 13 to say 18-year-olds to do. They're in the streets all night fussing and cussing, and we need to take some of this open land and find something for them to do. I would love to see like a soccer field put on down in there. We have no community centers. We have nothing. I would love to see a soccer field. Let's get a soccer team going. Some of the young guys were talking about let's get put some basketball rims so we can have competition. Tennis, all this vacant land. Let's find something for these kids to do, because if it's not for people like me, because I used to be a troubled teen, and I take them under my wing. But it's nothing, even with the new Joe Louis Greenway down there on Joy Road, where she was talking about that Treehouse, mental health, that Treehouse, it would be excellent for them. Because a lot of these kids grew up in impoverished homes and still are. And a lot of them are going to be severely mentally ill if they're not. I would love to see a treehouse down there on our end where they put in that $50 million walkway. So I could take some of those kids down there. So do we have anything in plan for these kids? Because this is the fastest growing. We're starting to be developed down in here. Families and kids are coming. What are we going to do with them? Because half of them are homeschooled. So what are we going to do with them to keep them out of trouble? And that's my comment.
Me? Does somebody want to address? Oh, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deshaun Wilson. I'm a 21-year naval veteran. I retired in 2017. When I was over in Afghanistan and Iraq, the Army Corps of Engineers came up with a concept of using shipping containers for housing. Detroit Shipping, if you're familiar with Detroit Shipping Co., we built that. I'm trying to get more African Americans involved in cargo architecture. We are a full-fledged architectural firm. We're a 3 Squared architectural firm right there. Our model center is right there on Trumbull and Pine. We have 9 shipping containers that are built right there on the corner. We erected that building in 6 hours. So you can be under roof. Not saying that the whole project would be done in six hours, but the containers, you have to look at it like 10,000-pound Legos. And so we prefabricate them, then we site build, we bring them on. We are a full-fledged architectural firm, but we also have another product that's called Home that we just introduced, and Director Bryant. We've been in close contact and communication with him, but we don't come with a problem, we come with a solution. We have a solution to the housing. I'm a veteran, so I'm a huge veteran advocate. So we have a lot of homeless veterans here, men, women, and their dependents. So we come with a solution to build housing all over the city. We have the means, we have the products, we have the people to do it. So when we come to the land bank, we came to the land bank maybe a couple of years ago, and the problem with the land bank, and I'm not gonna say it's a problem, it's just the issue was that when you buy a land bank property, if you wanna build on it, land bank wants first right of refusal of that property. Most banks are not gonna give you a loan for that sense. They wanna have first right of refusal. So we can, I can talk with someone, and I can do I can do a whole array of things, but we have a problem, and we have the problem, but we have the solution to it also. So if anyone is interested, we do tours at our model center. Just contact me, get my information. We can do a tour. But cargo architecture is the new wave of the future. Our home product is used by using 3D imaging. So a lot of materials, a lot of the lumber and things that you have to do with a traditional build is very expensive now. We're talking about $200, $235 a square foot. We came with our product that we can build a whole home with $175 per square foot. So we have a solution. The Greenway is going to be great. It's coming right through our neighborhood. I live on Jefferson, right there in Harbortown. But if you even residential or commercial, we've done projects all throughout Michigan and other states. So if you have any interest in cargo architecture or learning how to do cargo architecture, please contact me. Deshaun Wilson, DESHAWN, and our company is 3 Squared Inc., and that's all spelled out, 3 Squared Inc. So it's Deshaun at 3squaredinc.com. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Jo. I'm a Wayne State graduate student and also a resident in the Barton McFarland neighborhood for since 2017, more than 5 years already. We just started our block club, which covers 3 streets. First group, we attracted 17 houses and 40 people. In future, we're gonna attract more, and 2 more streets gonna join us. But currently, we have a problem. If we have meetings more than 10, 20 people, when it's getting winter time, it's difficult to gather just in a small house, anybody's house. So we're trying to see if we can have some building we can purchase from land bank or somewhere, and then we can get some grant to make it in a condition, have heating or and water so that we can meet during the winter time. It's 6 months, we don't have place for meetings. So I hope if this is gonna be possible in future for any assistance for our block clubs. Thank you.
How y'all doing today? My name is Kareem Shabazz, melanated people of Baku. Blatantly, we could say that the redevelopment is gentrification. How will we address that? And the food oasis that's in the city of Detroit. There's so many kids that go to school and don't eat unless they're at school, the after school programs. I've been trying to get another piece of land from the land bank for a couple of years. There's people here that's not here for the development of the city, the development for their kids to be here, following generation. All this redevelopment is nothing but blatant gentrification, and we need to be addressed. And there's too many kids going to sleep hungry. You can tell when you go to school, they got they pants are sagging, they white dingy shirts looking like it's brown, looking gray. We got to address this. Kids need food to develop their mind. And all it is blatant gentrification need to be addressed.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to take a moment while Tommy finds the next person with a question to draw your attention to the boards in the back. I'm hearing lots of really great ideas around what you want to see done on your land. Each of those boards has a different neighborhood, and there's stickers. There's little red dots on those boards that point to vacant lots in your neighborhoods. And so on the left side, there's a step 1 and step 2. You can put those activities down that you want to see. Like, I want to see this here. You can put the number, and you can put like the number sticky on the map, and then write out what you want to see. I want to see all of those activities on the board. Just check in with our speakers. Did anyone want to respond to some of the ideas and thoughts that we've heard so far? They're all saying great. Okay.
Hi, my name is Kavisha Eccles. I have a comment. I grew up in this neighborhood, graduated from McKenzie High School, went to Randolph Voltech, and I left, and I was in New York City for the last 20-something years and came back 5 years ago and was completely shocked at what I saw. I heard about it, but I didn't see it for myself until I moved back into the neighborhood. And one of the first things I asked was, when I saw so many houses that were demolished, was where were the vocational students? Why didn't the city utilize some of the youth and some of the programs to get manpower to prevent that from happening? And now that I'm hearing all these comments about people talking about the children, I want to go back to education again. Is there any plan to include some of these vocational kids to help build some of these spaces that you all are talking about and designing, or even getting the kids to design from the CAD/CAM programs to design some of these spaces also? Because they're going to be the ones that utilize it and be running this city in the next 20 years while we're planning this stuff now. So to get them involved and to appreciate that stuff, I would hope that the Detroit Public School Systems is looking at some of our vocational centers, even with the health, public health. These are vulnerable neighborhoods. Are they doing STEM projects around here to get kids involved in what's going to be planned for this future? So I hope that's part of the plan also.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Davis Wiley, and I want to speak on the behalf of homeless people. I always see something in plans regarding affordable housing. I want to know what people consider affordable housing, because when I go to places to try to find affordable housing, it's not affordable. So I want to know what do people who's planning these or putting them in the programs, what do they consider affordable?
So I don't see anybody else that wants to tackle that, so I'll tackle that. So when we're talking about typically affordable housing, it's not a set price point. Affordable for you should be paying no more than 30% of your income on housing. And that's obviously going to be a wide range of housing. Now, I know a lot of us maybe don't pay 30% of our income on housing. And according to the federal government, if we're paying more than 30% of our income on housing, that includes utility costs, then we're considered to be cost burden. because we're essentially overspending on housing. So when we're talking about affordable housing, it's providing more housing based on that range of incomes, knowing we know what typical income ranges people make in the community, from nothing to 100, 1,000. And we want to make sure that there's housing at each of those price points so people aren't overly cost burdened. I saw oh yes.
I just wanted to piggyback a little bit. One of the challenges is that they base the AMI, they base the range of affordable quote unquote housing in Detroit off of a tri-county area that has wealthier suburbanites included in that. And so that's one of the problems. That's why a lot of us tried to get Detroiters Bill of Rights Proposal P passed, so that affordable housing would really only focus on the median household incomes in Detroit. And unfortunately, if the median household incomes that are being leveraged to create affordable housing is taking into these other communities that are double the median household income of Detroiters, it's never truly going to be affordable for Detroiters, and that's the challenge that we're facing.
Hello, my name is Julia Carswell. I stay on the east side of Detroit. My concern is people focus on children, they focus on a whole lot of things, but nobody focus on men. You got men in the community. I use it, say yes to Detroit is a beautiful place, but before they tore down the play area, the men used to meet there every day and they would just barbecue or do whatever. What happened to me in 2016 is my husband passed. I found out that I had property on the east side that I didn't know I had. I rented out my house and I moved into that property, but every night they would shoot at each other, the reds and the blues or whatever you call them. I didn't know nothing about them. So what I did as a mother, everybody said, well, okay, men won't help men that's in pain. But so I went out to the community and I talked to them, and I had about 25 of them in my home on a Saturday. Some of them didn't eat pork, some of them had college degrees, but they was using drugs. I assessed them. But what happened was I could not get one person in a church or city council or the community to help me with these men. As of today, we'll say so many years later, I got vacant property near my house within 500 feet. So they say I can purchase a lot. But they have 3 available lots, but I can only get one that's close enough to my house. So I'm trying to get the lot to use it as a green area, to build a play area, maybe a garden, a picnic area, something both the block club that I have and the men can use, but that would move them away from the children. So the children don't have to see them smoke, they don't have to see them drink and all that kind of stuff. But on top of that, who's gonna help me assess them? Who's gonna help me find out what the need is? I can't stand, I'm from Alabama, and I picked a little cotton. So for you to roll somebody up in a truck with a children of cotton to go pick cotton all day, that's the experience I had when the donut place on Woodward was open, and they loaded 15 men in the truck to pass out newspapers for 50 cents a day. You can't raise no children with $50 a day. So we gotta if we do it the same way, we're gonna get the same result. Don't no man wanna work for pennies and have to raise their family. So skilled trades is out there. I got an organization, a 501c3. Yes, it's just on paper, but I want to put it together so we can build affordable housing. We can create jobs. We can fix it so they can have their own house. Then when they step to a woman, they won't be turned down. And then it make them feel a little better. My daddy had 18 kids and a 3rd grade education. I never seen him beg nobody for nothing. He created his own job. And back in the day, the Masons taught the men how to build concrete houses and this. Nobody is taking, I don't care if they smoke weed, drink on drugs, get them some rehabilitation, get them what they need so they can excel. And that's all I have to say. Amen.
Okay, we're going to do about 5 more minutes of Q&A, and then I'm going to pass it on to our speakers to give last remarks. And then we're going to kind of start the transition between now and our other 2 sessions. Remember, there's 2 tracks, so a community scale track and a city track. One of them is in this room. The community breakout 1A is in this room. 1B is in the room right by those purple balloons over there. There's a lot of us in this room, so we're giving just a little bit extra time to transition between spaces. I also want to point out there are trash cans now outside, and I think in that corner of the room. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Linwood Powell. I own a 501c3 organization that helps teaches the youth about financial literacy. It's called BCIC Early Achievers. And so I hear a lot of people in here talking about the youth and how they need to be involved and being able to empower them. I think one of the main things is finances, right? If you talk to kids about money, you get their attention. And so I have a program that I run out of the Boys and Girls Club on Collinwood, teaching the youth about financial literacy. And so I hear a lot of people say they want to get the kids involved, whether it's a vocational school, whether it's a project of some sort. And I think getting to our youth at an early age, maybe around the ages of 16 and 17, and telling them about purchasing land to be able to build houses on and build generational wealth for their futures. And so I think if we can get everybody together to create some type of wave to being able to teach them about land and teach them about purchasing the land. I actually teach the financial literacy course, and I teach about credit as well. And credit is the foundation for America. And so if we can give them that information to learning how to leverage their credit while owning this land and building a house on this land, whether it be a container home or it be a brick and mortar home, then that right there would keep their attention off of the violence and all of the other things that they are involved in. And right now, if the land bank is giving the land away at a cheap cost, a lot of our kids are walking around with a $500 pair of shoes on. And if you can go purchase some land for $500 or $1,000 and sit on it for 2 or 3 years and come up with a plan while learning financial literacy and learning how to leverage your credit and being able to buy the materials and or getting a skill through a vocational school to being able to build a home and having your friends and family members to come in and assist you with building this house, then you can look up in years to come and you will see the crime rate will go down, and you will see these kids being able to be involved in what we know as the American dream.
Good evening, good afternoon. My name is Alicia Franklin. I am the founder of Clean Recycle Create. Clean Recycle Create is an organization in the city of Detroit where we want to enhance the collective consciousness of a clean, creative environment. We can have this very grand Greenway, but if we continue to litter, if we continue to eat things that's going to cause trash around the city, and we do not clean up collectively, it's going to continue to look the way it is. We all have to step in together. I'm not sure where. I'm not sure where or how. It cannot just be on Earth Day, 420, and then they take 420 and they take it away and they make it about marijuana. So we have to come together and really stand up. Clean Recycle Create, again, we're on Instagram. If you want to contribute, my name is Alicia Franklin. I'm here, Detroit, we're here.
Thank you. And just to plug, if you own, I'm hearing a lot of business owners, if you haven't signed up and we don't have your name and your business, please make sure you sign in with the sign-in sheet or find me or Tommy or someone just so that we know who you are. Tommy, did you have someone or no? Okay. Well, one last question, and then we'll give it over to the speakers.
Hey everyone, I'm Andrew Kaplowitz. I live in Southwest Detroit. First of all, I want to thank everyone for their comments today and the presentations. I think it's really inspiring to hear all these ideas about how we can make our city a really beautiful place. I really appreciate the focus on creating opportunities for youth, workforce development, beautifying green spaces. And My question is, where are these conversations happening outside of this room? Are there any forums for us to get together in a continued way, so that way it's not a one-off conversation? Where can I show up to learn more and continue to be present? Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, we'll start with Wes and then we'll pass it on down.
Yes, I mean, these are incredibly exciting ideas, and I think it really speaks to this idea of the opportunity that vacant lands can bring to communities, and how, you know, the energy of the community can really, you know, start to activate these parcels, and people can sort of build their plans and their ideas around, you know, the idea that this land is there, and in other cities the land is not there. And so all the ideas we've heard here, you know, really connect really tightly to this idea that the land is there, that there's opportunity. And I think it's just, I'm looking forward to hearing more ideas and sort of exploring this throughout the day.
Hi, yeah, thank you all for sharing your testimonies and your thoughts and ideas. Just a couple of things that I wanted to pick up on in terms of initiatives. With regard to youth, I think Grow Detroit's Young Talent is doing a good job of connecting Detroit high schoolers with nonprofit organizations that are not just focused on vacant land transformation, all types of community services, and providing them with summer jobs. So that's a great partnership, and we should really keep that up and keep funding it so the youth are getting connected to these initiatives. In terms of small-scale neighborhood housing development, I wanted to lift up Building Community Value. Chase Cantrell leads that. It's a training program for renovations and doing small-scale, like starting with single family, could go up to more, but learning how to do development. And then there was a comment about the stormwater management system, and I wanted to lift up We the People's work. They put out a really in-depth report a couple years ago, which was really outlining the inequities of the regional and the city sewer water system, and how Detroiters are stuck paying the majority of the debts. So wanted to lift those up, and I think you all are bringing up just how interconnected resiliency is. If you can't pay your bills, like Tammy said, you can't really be thinking about these bigger picture or longer term. And so I think to be resilient and to be thriving, we need to be adding more housing affordability. We need to create more jobs. We need to increase the wealth and income of Detroiters, especially Black Detroiters and other people of color in the city. And so with regard to where can you link into the conversations, with regard to the open space network and land use, would certainly encourage those who are interested to, I'll take down your email, or I'll give you my card to sign up for the open space working group. Those meetings are bi-monthly, and Detroit Future City has an annual equity forum. We're having it on November 2nd, so we'll be having this conversation about community development and resiliency. Please keep a lookout for that. Sign up for our mailing list. If you want to see some of the work on the ground, we have a tour in collaboration with the Month of Design through Design Corps on September 19th, so you can go to the Month of Design website and register for that tour as well. Thank you, and excited to hear more.
Thank you guys for having me here. I'm so excited about all the work that everyone is doing in our city. We're very hardworking people who are grassroots people, and we just want the best for each other and for our city and for our children. So that's the main goal here, and I am so excited to be a part of this. And if anyone needs my help in anything, we want to do community solar, where also you can come and you can get solar as an individual homeowner, renter, or business, and it'll be taken off your utility bill from this megawatt solar farm. So, you know, we want to do a lot of things, and we want to train our children on how to do these installations. We want them to learn how to work in solar just as well, and we want them to be, like the gentleman said, we want to have generational wealth. okay? If they learn the stock market, if they learn crypto, if they learn about insurances and which the best way, 401ks and things like that, they need to know this as little kids. So this is important for our city, and it's important for our children, it's important for us. Back in Mississippi, people would come, everybody would be on the same porch. Everybody would eat food, talk, work together. We gotta get our grassroots back. That's what we need. Thank you.
So first of all, it's great to hear about all these different, everybody in the room who's doing stuff, clean, recycle, create, and we were looking up 3 Squared Inc. because we want to look into that. I think, you know, when it comes to a lot of these problems are really, really big ones. That's what I was trying to point out. You didn't make the problems. The problems were problems that have been bequeathed to you by history, but you're stuck with them, right? And but government needs to be at the table, needs to have a role. I think one of the great things about this project, Joe Louis Greenway, is that city government is involved with it and is taking an active role. But and universities, I'm at a university, universities have a role too. But none of this happens without strong communities, with powerful communities making their voices heard. You have to push them, and you have to push them and let them know you're out here, and let them know what you want, let them know that you vote. That's how they respond. That's what they respond to. And one thing I love about Detroit is you see it here. The leaders that you need, as they say, they're all around you. Pastor Barry Randolph at Church of the Messiah on the east side, those of you who know Pastor Barry, says, you know, the old saying is if you're not at the table, you're on the table. What Pastor Barry says is we set the table. So when you come to the neighborhood, you know you're coming to our table. And that's, I think, the stance everybody like Ms. Jennifer, you need to take. This is our table. You come here, and then we talk about what we want to see happen. So thank you all. You're inspiring to me. Appreciate it. And I'd love to meet more of you. Thanks.
I just also wanted to mention that every Wednesday, Ms. Deanna Stort with Equity Alliance, which is the space that we're in right now, hosts a small business support network. So every Wednesday, 10 to 2, you can come here and you can get some support for your small business. So I just wanted to mention that.
Awesome. And then before we break, I do want to point out one very important person in the room, and that's Michelle Flournoy in the back with PDD. She's helping to manage this whole project, and if you have any questions or things that we're not really talking about on a specific session and you're not really sure who to ask, she's the person that you want to ask, okay? So she's going to raise her hand so you can see her. She gets all the hard questions today. Don't forget to visit all of the resources outside. There's 2 restrooms here. There's a restroom in the other room as well. There's a lot of us, so be patient with everyone. Oh, and she's going to open this other one. Great. And then we're going to break so that you guys can switch between rooms. So look forward to seeing you here. If you're in the next one, I'll be here too. Or you can go over to the next room. All right. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our 4 presenters. Hello, ladies. We have Danielle, Dasmonique, Carolyn. Oh, let me start over. Danielle, Dasmonique, Carolyn, and Katrina, here to talk about their work, their expertise, about creating and using vacant land that is community stewarded. So I will turn it over first to Dasmonique. Is that right? You gonna start? Or Danielle, you're gonna start? Who's? It's not working. Hold on a second. Little hiccups here between. There we go. I'll work on moving people out of the way.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I love it. I'm Danielle. I am with Keep Growing Detroit as the Development and Engagement Coordinator. So at Keep Growing Detroit, we focus on cultivating a food sovereign city where a majority of Detroiters, the access to their fresh fruits and vegetables are grown within the city limits. So there's a lot of ways people already know about us. The biggest thing is through the Garden Resource Program, where people receive seeds and transplants, support, classes, and lots of next to a lot of programming. Are there folks in here who are part of the Garden Resource Program? Could you raise your hand? Yeah, that's what's up. You are connected to over 2,000 farms and gardens located within the city of Detroit, Hamtramck, and Highland Park. So I appreciate you in doing that. So that's one major way where a lot of people know us from, where they are picking up their seeds, their transplants. They're part of a lot of our programs. People also know us from Eastern Market, from Grown in Detroit. We have a stand in Shed 2 on Saturdays. All of our produce is, if it's not grown on our farm, also located in Eastern Market, it's grown on other farms located within the city of Detroit and grown with sustainable uses. And then 100% of the profits of those produce sold go right back to the farmers. So that's pretty awesome. Through that program, so we have Eastern Market. We also have our online farm store where people can buy online and then pick up at our farm. We have a CSA, which is Community Supported Agriculture. And then we also now, this year is the first time that we have our own farm stand at our farm every Thursdays from 4 to 7. And so we do a lot of work in the community. And we also know that there are people who have been growing for a very, very long time. And so we support them in stepping up their farms and gardens through a lot of different capacity programming. So like rain catchment systems, hoop houses, assistance with being able to own their land, and a lot of that types of soil testing is another major part of the work that we do. So in total, in 2022, we've distributed almost 60,000 packs of seeds and over 200,000 transplants that are high quality seeds and then plants that are grown sustainably within the city of Detroit. And when we, through the help of a lot of volunteers and groups, we were able to kind of work on a lot of the things that we have going on in our connection throughout the city. And then secondly, my second hat that I'm wearing today is through the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund. On June, there's a lot of y'all out here. Can you raise your hand if you're an awardee of the Land Fund? Nice, nice. You're like all here, yay! That's what's up. Okay, so on Juneteenth 2020 was the first time that we launched. We raised capital for Black farmers in the city of Detroit to be able to own the land where they are growing, or to start a new farm as well. And then we also provide funds, capital for people to be able to for farm infrastructure as well. So again, like with maybe you might need a fence, maybe you might need a storage shipping container, or whatever it is, to be able to do the work that you've got going on. So to date, we have distributed awards to 120. We've distributed 121 awards to Black farmers within the city of Detroit. 53 of those awardees are now landowners, and and then 15 and a half of those acres are now owned by those landowners and awardees. 34, I think that's 34 farm infrastructure projects have been completed, and then 15 of these awardees are currently in the process of their land. So this year is our year 4 of the fund, and then we this year we're looking to support 50 Black farmers within the city of Detroit and raised an additional 50,000. So yeah, this is the great work that we get to do. I also just want to give a shout out to T over here. Y'all already know, she gets her own clap for what she does. But yeah. Okay. This is for you.
Okay, cool. All right. Hi, everybody. That's me. I'm Desmonique Carr.
I'm Dasmonique Carr, the founder and director of operations for Deeply Rooted Produce. I know some familiar faces, and I'm also the founder of Deeply Rooted Gardens. Deeply Rooted Produce is a LLC, a small business, but Deeply Rooted Gardens is a nonprofit organization that provides assistance to farmers based off of some stuff that I've been doing for years prior while I had Deeply Rooted Produce. So we focus on food access, food mobility, and land access, and maximizing the land for food. Deeply Rooted Produce is a zero waste mobile grocery store. We partner with different chefs, different food makers, and different farmers in the city of Detroit and Highland Park to distribute their produce and make it either into a value added product or to distribute to a market of some sort. So we have our own markets. We host a farm stand at River Rouge Library. We go to Palmer Park Farmers Market. We also have a merchandiser refrigerator in Pillar and Pride, which is a Black-owned wellness center off of 7 Mile and Woodward, right across the street from the Palmer Park Farmers Market. So people who would like to access local produce and they can't get to the farmers market, from Wednesday to Sunday, they can find our produce at Pillar and Pride, in addition to a whole bunch of different herbs and wellness stuff and a whole bunch of different things. This is my farmer helper, Prince. And so we changed the way that we offer our products. In addition to the farm stand, we learned that there is more people who needed in-person assistance versus those that can get delivery. However, our main services are offering delivery, farm stand, and then we're working on a mobile market truck that rides around like an ice cream truck for produce, well, groceries. We literally got a free truck from a guy he's closing his business, so grateful for that opportunity. And so we also offer subscription services or CSAs, but the way that we do it is people can buy a credit on our website and you pretty much grocery shop on the website. So we have an online store, we have a few in-person markets, and then we have the trucks that make deliveries as well around the neighborhoods. So like I mentioned, we also have donation-based meals. Every single Sunday, we make meals out of the local produce that we distribute and produce. And there's some other farmers and gardeners who have some excess produce that help us put that into the meals. We accept subsidized payments, WIC Project Fresh, Senior Project Fresh. We are a fresh prescription food partner, which means that, one, we have our own program with 2 living facilities where seniors, specifically seniors, but a lot of people with physical ailments, mostly food-related diseases, get a 6-week free subscription. We could say subscription, but 6 weeks free of fresh produce. And we're a food partner for that with Eastern Market, and then we also have our own program at 2 living facilities. And then in addition to that, for our general services, we accept different forms of payment so that we make food more accessible all around. Got that. And so Deeply Rooted Gardens was developed so that the land is now being used to help bring the whole loop together. So there's people who own land, there's people who are growing food, and then there's people who are producing the food, distributing the food, packaging the food, and then there's a loop that happens where we get the different raw products to the package. And then we also have a platform where that package is then be sold. So we do that all in-house with Deeply Rooted Gardens. I'm really excited about the fact that we're developing, we own a couple residential properties in addition to about 2.5 acres on the east side of Detroit. And we are activating that land and the properties to make sure that there's a closed loop food system right on the east side of Detroit where it comes to the raw commodities, the value added product, and the distribution. So we do that all in-house, and we help farmers and food makers do that as well. We also help with identifying edible landscapes. There's a lot of grapevines and mulberry trees. Goldenrod is coming up a lot nowadays. And it's great to have goldenrod honey and stuff nowadays. So there's a lot of different things. We also have chickens on our farm too. There's a lot of different things that we can do to make sure that the things that already exist are being used to their full capacity. So that's what we prioritize, making sure that those things are identified, used, and then either distributed or made into a package so that it can further be received by the consumer. We also help people with their garden installations. More so, we work with pantries and other commercial people who want to have like either a backyard garden or a 5x100 plot of land where they seriously want to grow some food, a few rows of food. We really are serious about that land access and making sure that people know from the raw products to the commodity to the product that's on the shelf, you know, that whole entire process. And then we just help with a lot of strategic planning. We've been able to help award people at least, I think we're at 35,000 with different Black farmers with grant writing services who are literally able to create community kitchen spaces, take their different grapevine products and make wine. We've been able to write grants for different farmers and create strategic planning services for those farmers as well, so that they not only just have that money, but they know what to do with it afterwards. And we're, again, creating those sustainable food systems, like I mentioned. We just really focus on the edible landscapes, making sure that there's sensory gardens and small places for little people to play. And what we really would love to see in a Greenway like this is, some type of charging stations where it just helps the whole entire person. It helps from the little people where I have to, like mothers and things like that, who have to bring their children with them, and they just want to do more, pretty much. So I work on different books that explain how different people can implement edible landscapes. That's just really just activating what already exists and how we can make it more accessible for everybody, both children to adults and to older adults. So these are just some of the priorities that we focus on. In the next 5 years, we would love to assist with implementing edible landscapes in the city, making sure that the existing fruit trees, there's lots of apple trees that currently exist. We just want to use them and not just let the trees feel all heavy all the time. Because they literally, if you shake a tree and just feel it, they're like, oh God, thank you. But we would love to acquire more land for these lots and make sure that the pre-existing trees are maintained and integrate them into new developments. We want to make sure that there's increased food consumption and partnerships that happen to decrease food waste all around. And really get the food away from the trash and getting it recycled and compost and things like that. So I'm Dasmini Carr with Deeply Rooted Produce. Thank you.
Yeah, we can do that right after. Yeah, let's continue with the speakers, please.
Oh, there we go. Got it? Got it? Okay.
I'll talk to you after the presentation.
All right, if you're taking a picture. All right.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Carolyn Pruitt. I am the Executive Director of My Community Speaks. My Community Speaks is a nonprofit organization located in the city of Detroit, actually not too far from here. Our boundaries extend to from West Grand Boulevard to Epworth, and from West Warren to just across or near the 96 Service Drive. What we do is we support and we promote enterprise, autonomy, knowledge, and sustainability within communities of color, more specifically within the boundaries that I just described. Some of our target areas are neighborhood beautification and stabilization, as well as holistic opportunities for residents and youth, as also advocacy. In addition to being the executive director of My Community Speaks, I'm also a resident of the area, very passionate about this community. Many of us refer to it as the Old West Side, affectionately. There are a lot of super seniors in this community. My great-grandfather purchased his first home in this neighborhood, and it really means a lot to me. So living here, noticing the various changes and the opportunity, I felt compelled to do something. Years ago, we had, I'm sure that it might be the same in other communities, but we experienced street flooding. So wanting to, find a solution to the problem, we thought of an opportunity to utilize some of the vacant spaces. So you can see some of the photos at the top where the street is flooded, which often cause residents to not be able to park on their street or to deviate and go around. There was also excessive grass growth. So, imagine coming out and not being able to walk on your sidewalk because the grass is tall, or not really wanting to look out your window because the grass is tall. And so thinking about that, seeing that was very inspiring to me, not only because I didn't want to see it, but because I wanted to encourage my neighbors to get out and get active. So what we did was we reimagined the space. Currently, what was 4 vacant residential lots has been transformed into a garden. It's a space that has 2 different gardens. It has a pollinator garden as well as a rain garden. The rain garden actually allows the water, the excess water that does not go into the drain, to circulate into the actual garden bed, the rain garden, and the plants that we've planted, most of which are native, have deep roots and help alleviate that issue that we had. In addition to that, it creates a vibrant space for residents to enjoy. So I mentioned our super seniors. One of the concerns that we had was their activity, their mobility, wanting to get them active. This is a space that is literally on their street or around the corner. It encourages them to get out, take a stroll, watch the bees, see the butterflies, and just be in nature. We have over 19 different plant species planted throughout the space. The rain garden, it accommodates nearly 13,000 gallons of water. When you think about that, that's a lot of water. This is our first year of actually having the rain garden portion installed, so it's been very enlightening and a learning experience to watch it do what we thought it would do. It's actually doing it. It's about 3 feet deep. We installed gabion baskets to allow physical interaction with the space. We intend to not only just allow this space to be a place for folks to enjoy or to decompress, but we want it to also be an educational tool. So we're hoping that this is a model for not only this neighborhood, but for others who might also be struggling with, stormwater management or what have you. A project that we're working on is a bird meadow. So just behind this space is another 4 or so vacant lots that is not maintained regularly. We have native birds in the neighborhood that we love and we do enjoy, such as pheasants. Hearing them, seeing them brings many of us joy. So what we are working with Detroit Audubon and I'm blanking on the other organization, is to reimagine this space also. So how can we tie this into the rain garden and the pollinator garden to continue that an opportunity for residents to be in nature, but then also to preserve the habitat for those who are there and have been there, such as the birds, the bees, and the other species. When thinking about vacant spaces and vacant land, we interact a lot with residents. And so a lot of the things that we heard is, we have all this space, we want to do these wonderful things. Sometimes finance might be an issue. Sometimes it's a matter of just wanting it to be in close proximity to where they are so they can maintain it and control it. So some ideas with reimagining this space would be to utilize storage containers or what have you. We can see that, or we've heard that some residents could see that being used for small business opportunities, you know, for affordable housing, office space, studios, education, or even a library. We do know that many of our libraries have closed in the city of Detroit, so in addition to the library hubs that you might see in other spaces, that's also an idea. Thank you for letting me share.
Hello, everyone. My name is Katrina Watkins, and I'm the CEO and founder of Bailey Park Neighborhood Development Corporation, located in the McDougal-Hunt neighborhood on the east side, not too far from Eastern Market, right in the same neighborhood as Heidelberg Project. So in 2013, I started Bailey Park because it was so much overgrowth in the neighborhood. The grass was so high. It was dangerous. I wanted to do something. And I was telling my neighbor and just complaining about it. And she said, why don't you just do a nonprofit, stop complaining about it, and start trying to create the change yourself. So that's what I did. So I started just clearing out vacant lots, getting kids together, and we would just clean up the vacant lots. In 2015, I was fortunate to meet up with 2 UAD students who came to talk to my father about Black Bottom. They wanted to do, and initially they wanted to do their project on Black Bottom. But when they were leaving, they asked me what was my vision for the community. And I said, all I really want to do is clear it's about 16 lots in front of my house, because it's a total forest, it's dangerous, things are happening, it's like things are happening in the woods. So they turned that into a project, and through that project, I learned how to connect with other organizations, how to connect with the city. I learned about the Detroit Land Bank, and that really started to get things going for me. So through that project, we cleared about 16 vacant lots in front of my house. The next year, I revitalized a city park called Calcara Park. It was so overgrown, we didn't know it was there. We were able to partner with Comerica Bank and PAL to activate the park with the baseball field. Wow. After that, residents wanted a park because the kids did not have a park in the neighborhood. There was no place to play that was safe. So we did a little fundraiser. We raised money to purchase 8 parcels. That was easy. We purchased the 8 parcels through Detroit Land Bank. It was a very smooth process. We next wanted to get the additional 15 parcels, which was not as smooth as a process. We started leasing those parcels in 2017. By 2022, we were able to purchase. All through that time, we maintained those lots. Those lots were like a forest. We were able to partner with Team Rubicon. Now, mind you, I did not get any funding until 2018. But what I learned how to do was to partner with other people, organizations, and businesses to make it happen. Bailey Park is 100% resident-driven. And we have support from a variety of organizations that help us to make it happen, what we do. We partner with Detroit Future City. East Side Community Network is a huge partner on the East Side that has really helped us to build our capacity in what we do. So what we do is we have a park called Bailey Park. Those are the youth kind of working on Bailey Park right now. Bailey Park is on 23 contiguous vacant lots. I think it's one of the largest, I won't say largest, but probably one of the largest community developed parks in the city. A lot of times when people come by, they ask, is it a city park? No, this is a community park that we did ourselves. So having all that land, you have to maintain that land. So we created the Bailey Park Grounds Crew, which is, we do landscaping, but not only do we maintain the park, we also maintain about 95 vacant lots within our neighborhood, which is, it's not a lot because we have over 400 vacant lots, but we do what we can. We also generate income as much as we can right now through the landscaping. We cut for residents, we cut for businesses, and we cut for churches. Not only that, we go outside the neighborhood because we know about blight, and we help other Black clubs and neighborhoods with their blight projects and clearing their alleyway, you know, as long as it's within our capacity. As you know, some alleyways are really bad. They're full of trees, so the city really needs to come through with their alleyway project. So we also help residents with their beautification projects. We have some funding, and we try to help residents because we have a lot of vacant land, and residents like to purchase their side lots, their neighborhood lots. We also help them with that project, that process of helping them to get their neighborhood lots or side lots with the paperwork. But we also, you know, we try to help them with their beautification because that makes the neighborhoods look better, right? Let's see. We also have like a community hub because when the pandemic hit, we didn't have a physical place, but we were able to get a house, and we just initially started handing out PPE supplies. Right now, we have a hot plates program for seniors where we're giving seniors hot plates every Wednesday. We also distribute about 100 food boxes monthly throughout the city of Detroit. We deliver them because sometimes getting to a site can be, it could be a problem for people who don't have transportation. We have workforce development. I already mentioned the landscaping. It's one where we employ about 6 residents. In total, we probably employ about 16 residents in the neighborhood. So we try to hire within the neighborhood. If not the neighborhood, East Side Detroit, or in Detroit. Let's see, I'm probably missing a lot because we do so much. We do a lot. Let's see. Well, let me go back. So these are the youth. These youth actually started with me when they were like 4, 5, and 6. And now they're employed through Bailey Park. In the summer, they're with the Grow Young Detroit Talent program. So we had about 16 youth through that program this year. So we're really proud of them. This is the Bailey Park Beats. We do music in the park. So we wanted to create a park where people could come and be active and feel safe. So we have the children's play area, and we built a stage, and we decided to see how how residents would feel about live music. Because we do have funding for an amphitheater, but it's important how people feel about what's going on. So we just don't dictate what we want to do. We want residents to feel okay with what we do. You know, but it turns out they love the music. So we have music every Saturday from 3 to 7. This week we're having Bamba in the Park, and then after that we have an R&B band coming in, so it'll be great if you want to come. It's on Elmwood, and across the street from Charlottesville. Our last one will be August the 27th, where we'll have our neighborhood festival. This is our Arts Alleyway project, and again, residents helped come up with this design. We're going to be part of the City of Detroit Arts Alleyway initiative, and our alleyway will be complete by next year. And this is our Bailey Park Grounds crew in action. helping with the Windermere Black Club with their alleyway cleanup. We know how difficult it is to clean up in the neighborhood, and sometimes you just don't have the resources, you don't have the equipment. That's where we started, that's where I started, looking at high grass and thinking I could do it with a lawnmower, trying, and it didn't work. So any questions or anything? But that's Bailey Park.
Awesome. Thank you all so much.
You're welcome.